Greetings, travelers. Welcome to another fun ghost story Sunday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day you are listening. We just happy you're joining us. But today I'm going to start with some history and then we're going to go right into the ghost story in the second half. So this one was one I almost did for a full episode with Erica, but I thought you guys might enjoy this one just as a deep dive and a little bit of fun. So we're going to go back into the deep heart of Appalachian folklore, a little bit where history and legend have kind of intertwined and where the echoes of violence are kind of just still here. Our subject is two brothers, the Harpe Brothers, Micah Big Harpe and Wiley Little Harpe. They once struck terror in the wilds of Tennessee, Kentucky, and beyond. Some people call them America's first serial killers. Some others call them the devils of Appalachia. We're going to follow their trail across wilderness, and a little bit later, we're going to tell some ghost stories. So sit back and enjoy the tales. Before we get deep into the realm of the legends, we got to go into the grim reality of the late 18th century and the American frontier. Basically, the Harpe Brothers is full of violence, vengeance, and lawlessness, and just everything that haunted the borderlands of our young nation. We've kind of pieced this together from court records, some eyewitness accounts, and a lot of oral traditions of the communities that they kind of terrorized. So Micah, or Big Harpe, and Wiley, Little Harpe, they were sometimes cousins, sometimes brothers, no one really knows. They were born in the years before the American Revolution, somewhere between 1767 and 1770. They were born in Orange County, North Carolina, to Scottish immigrant families. Their fathers were loyalists and steadfast in their allegiance to the British crown during a time where that's pretty much a death sentence in that area. Some accounts said that the Harpe boys witnessed their parents' execution by Patriot neighbors. And this is a trauma that may have set them on this path of violence. As the revolution raged, the young Harpe brothers joined some Tory gangs that were kind of like bands of irregulars who exploited the chaos and just raided and burned and killed and did terrible things. These gangs had other names that I can't really say on the show. Pretty bad. And they would just raid Patriot families and settlements. And they fought in several battles as irregulars, including the Battle of Kings Mountain in 1780. And then they later joined forces with the Chickamauga Cherokee. And there they learned survival and stealth and also a little bit of their brutality. And now for over a decade, they lived among the Chickamauga at Nickajack, which is kind of near Chattanooga. During this period, they kidnapped two women, Susan Wood and Maria Davidson, and they would later become their wives and then companions in crime. Now, Wiley would later marry another lady, Sarah Rice, or Sally Rice, and she was the daughter of a Baptist minister, and that would be in 1797. So by the mid-1790s, the Harpes had settled near Knoxville, Tennessee, on Beaver Creek. Outwardly, they appeared to be settling down, raising hogs, selling pork, marrying into local families, but beneath that veneer, they were doing livestock thefts, they were burning barns, and many disappearances are plaguing the community. So in 1797, they were accused of stealing some horses, and the Harpes were captured by a posse, but they somehow managed to escape. And according to their wives, this was the turning point. And that was when they decided to declare war on all mankind. And that was their quote. Their first known murder was that of a man named Johnson, whose body was found in the Holston River, and he had been disemboweled and filleted. And then his body was filled with stones. This is a gruesome signature that they kind of marked many of their victims with. So from 1798 to 1799, they fled north. They entered Kentucky via the Wilderness Road, which is kind of this perilous artery right through Cumberland Gap. Daniel Boone had, marked it, and it was traveled by lots of settlers looking for new lives. But for the Harpes, this road led to death. Their victims included here Peyton, a peddler murdered for his horse and goods near the Cumberland Gap. Bates and Paca, 2 travelers from Maryland who were shot and tomahawked in December of 1798. Stephen Langford, a young Virginian who paid for the Harps breakfast at an inn, only to be found dead days later. His body was hidden in a ravine. The murders alarmed local authorities, and Captain Joseph Ballinger led a posse that captured the Harps again and their wives. And this is near Stamford, Kentucky, on Christmas Day in 1798. And they were jailed in Danville and awaited trial for Langford's murder. But frontiers jails were little more than log shacks, right? And on the night of March 16th, 1799, Big and Little Harpe escaped and left their pregnant wives behind again. The women were later acquitted, but each gave birth in jail. And then eventually they came back and joined them again. I don't understand it. It happens. So now the Harps' rampage intensifies at this point. In the spring and summer of 1799, their trail of blood stretched from Kentucky to Illinois and back. Now, this time, Johnny Trabue, a 13-year-old son of Colonel Daniel Trabue, was murdered for a sack of flour and beans. And then again, his body was mutilated and hidden in a sinkhole. Frederick Stump, a fisherman on the Barren River, was stabbed, disemboweled, filled with rocks, sunk in a river. 3 men camping near the Saline River in Illinois were all shot in cold blood, attributed to the Harps. Now, the Harps sought refuge at Cave in a Rock, which is a notorious den of river pirates, and it was led by Samuel Mason on the Ohio River. Even there, among the outlaws, the Harps' sadism was too much. They stripped a captive, tied him to a blindfolded horse, and then they chased them both over a cliff for sport. So Mason's gang said, "No, you gotta go. You're too crazy for us." So after that, we're still summer of 1799. They returned to Tennessee and Kentucky, and again, just kept going. Bradbury and Hardin were 2 farmers near Knoxville. They were murdered in July. A young boy named Coffee was killed for his rifle. William Ballard was found disemboweled, filled with rocks, and sunk in the Holston River. James Brassel had his throat slashed, and they named the mountain there Brassel's Knob after that. John Tully, he was murdered near the Tennessee-Kentucky border. John Graves and his teenage son were bludgeoned with an axe in south central Kentucky. And then the Triswold family, men, women, children, they were slaughtered in their camp near Adairsville, Kentucky. Now, the Harps' violence spared no one, not even their own children. In August 1799, Big Harpe killed his infant daughter by bashing her head against a tree because her crying threatened their concealment. It was the only murder for which he would later express remorse. So, end of their bloody trail, right? The final atrocity comes at the home of Moses Stigall in Webster County, Kentucky. On the night of August 20th, 1799, the Harps, posed as Methodist preachers, were given shelter by Mrs. Stigall, and who was home with her infant son and a guest, Major William Love. That night, the Harps murdered Love, allegedly for snoring too loud, then slit the baby's throat and killed Mrs. Stigall when she screamed about it. They burned the cabin to cover their crimes. Now, when Moses returned and found his family slain, he joined a posse, which was led by John Leiper, and they did not let up. At this point, these men got to go. So on August 24, 1799, they caught up with Big Harpe in Mulberg County, and he was shot in the leg and the back, pulled from his horse, and as he lay dying, he confessed to at least 20 murders. Moses Stigall, seeking vengeance, slowly cut off his head with a hunting knife. The head was spiked on a pole at a crossroads near Stigall Cabin, and a place is now known as Harpe's Head Road. Now, wily Little Harpe escaped the posse and returned to the Mason gang at Cave in a Rock, and he used the alias known as John Seton. But in 1803, he and a fellow outlaw named Pete Alston killed someone named Samuel Mason and cut off his head and tried to claim the bounty on him, but they were recognized as the villains that they were. They were arrested, and they were hanged in the old Greenville jail of the Mississippi Territory on February 8th, 1804. Their heads, too, were displayed on stakes alongside the Natchez Trace as a warning to other outlaws. So, what are the women? Well, after Big Harp's death, Sally Rice, Susan Wood, and Maria Davidson were tried as accomplices, but they were acquitted. The courts believed that they had been captives. Now, Sally returned to Knoxville, remarried, and moved to Illinois. Susan and Maria settled near Russellville, Kentucky. Maria later married John Hofstetter and moved to Illinois, where she lived until the 1860s. Now, the Harps' confirmed victims number at least 39, with some estimates as high as 50. Their crimes are so senseless and savage that even hardened criminals recoiled at them. They murdered men, women, children, and infants, and sometimes for gain, and seemingly for no reason at all many times. Their terror led to the formation of many vigilante posses and ultimately to the strengthening of law enforcement on the frontier. So their story endures in places names. Harp's Head Road is their haunted crossroads, and whispered warnings of Appalachian parents to their children: beware the devils that once walked these woods. So we'll be right back with the spookier side. So the Harp story didn't end with their deaths. In the hills and hollows of Appalachia, their spirits are said to linger, restless, vengeful, and forever bound to the places where they spilled blood. Now, travelers, let's leave the cold facts behind and enter where the line between history and haunting blurs. They say on certain moonless nights, if you travel the old road south of Dixon, Kentucky, you might find yourself at a lonely crossroads, a place the locals still call Harp's Head. 2 centuries ago, the head of Big Harp was spiked on a pole here, a warning to all who would follow his path. But some say the warning was not enough. Long after the flesh had rotted and the birds had picked the skull clean, travelers began to whisper of strange happenings at the crossroads. Horses would shy and refuse to pass. Dogs would whimper and cower, tails tucked between their legs. Some claimed to see a shadowy figure, tall, broad-shouldered, with wild black hair, standing beneath the trees, his face twisted in a perpetual scowl. One story tells of a peddler lost on a stormy night who sought shelter beneath the old tree. As he dozed, he was awakened by the sound of heavy footsteps and the cold touch of a hand on his shoulder. Looking up, he saw a headless figure looming over him, blood streaming from its neck. The peddler fled, abandoning his pack, and was found the next morning, babbling of the devil's ghost that haunted the crossroads. Others say that on the anniversary of Big Harp's death, a spectral head appears atop the pole, its eyes glowing red, its mouth moving in silent curse. The wind carries the echo of his last words: "Cut on and be damned." And woe to any traveler who lingers too long, for the Harp's Head spirit is said to hunger for company in the afterlife. The Wilderness Road, once the gateway to Kentucky's promised land, is now a ribbon of memory winding through the mountains. But not all who traveled it reached their journey. Some say the Harpe Brothers still ride the road, their spirits bound to the path of their crimes. On stormy nights, when the wind howls through the Cumberland Gap and the trees bend low, travelers have reported seeing 2 riders, one large, one slight, galloping along the old trace. Their horses' hooves make no sound, and their faces are as pale as moonlight. Sometimes the riders vanish into the mist. Other times they stop and stare with hollow eyes as if searching for their next victim. There are tales of wagons found abandoned, their drivers missing, and children who woke in the night to sound of laughter and clatter of horse hooves outside their cabins. Some say the Harps were cursed to ride the wilderness road forever, unable to find rest, doomed to haunt the land they once terrorized. And then there's the legend of the Wild Hunt, a spectral cavalcade that sweeps through the mountain, led by the ghosts of the Harpe Brothers. On All Hallows Eve, when the veil between the worlds is thin, the hunt rides out, gathering lost souls and striking terror into the hearts of those who hear its approach. And if you find yourself on the wilderness road after dark, and you hear the thunder of hooves behind you, do not look back. For if the Harpe Brothers catch you with their gaze, you may be swept away into the land of the dead. So what is it about the Harpe Brothers that keeps their story alive? Is it just the sheer brutality of their crimes, or the way their legend has woven itself into the very fabric of Appalachian folklore? In the mountains, ghost stories are more than entertainment. They're warnings, they're lessons, they're reminders of the darkness that dwells within us. And places can be haunted. Wilderness Road, Cave and Rock, Harp's Head. They're not just points on a map, but kind of living landscapes. They've got memory, they've got meaning. The ghosts of the Harps are said to be bound to these places, unable to move on, forever replaying the violence and fear they'd sowed. Now, in the oral tradition of Appalachia, stories are told with reverence for the dead and a sense of place. But the Harpe Brothers, that's a cautionary one, a reminder that evil, once unleashed, can echo through generations. Thanks for joining me on this eerie travel into America's haunted past. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review. Let us know your own haunted tales and places you'd like me to discuss at eerietravels.com. We'd love to hear it. And if you find yourself on a lonely crossroad or hear hoofbeats on the old wilderness road, share a thought for the souls who never found peace. Keep your lanterns lit and your wits about you, because you never know what shadows may be waiting just beyond the firelight. Beware the devils who walk in the woods, and we'll see you on the other side.